my friends, this isn't the first time in American history where we've had a homeless problem. And the homelessness problem is growing much worse every year. It's being expedited by a number of factors. And it's easy to sit there and go, well, that's just because they're a bunch of lazy so-and-sos who just don't want to work. Or these are, so many of these people are broken people, you can't reach them and you can't help them because in part, it's a part of the mental crisis. But that's not everybody who's got a homeless problem. And to really allow yourself to think that way is not being real to yourself. Not being real to yourself, and let alone being honest to everybody else that around you that really needs you to be honest with yourself. You know, it's easy to sit there and point fingers and go, well, if they would just get the lazy assholes themselves, just get a fucking job, we wouldn't have this problem, blah, right? And so I look at, you don't have to go far to look at this and go, how the hell is this normal? Right? Now, I have some disadvantages. For me, I grew up in Iowa, and I spent a good chunk of my life in and out of a small town. I lived close enough to Des Moines, which is the state capital, the largest city in the state, for it to get the metropolitan experience as much as you can have in the city of Des Moines. But there was always been a handful of people who are on the outs and outs. They're down on their luck or are so riddled with mental illness and drug addictions that they simply can't function. And it's a matter of time before they completely self-destruct. There's always that percentage. But I can tell you without a doubt, in the last 10 years, I have seen far, far more people out there on the side of the road holding signs. Many of them are quite healthy looking people that could go and get jobs. And I have to ask why they're not doing that. Now, I don't have answers for that, but they're not all drug abusers. They're not all alcoholics. They're not all rum worthless so-and-sos. Some are con artists. We have to be honest about that too. There's a middle-aged lady a couple times a week dresses very nicely. Got her long blonde hair, got a nice little cap on her hair, always wearing matching black outfits, more or less, lots of black with them. Shows up at the corner at 2nd Avenue and I-235. That's the interstate out here that 80 and 35 kind of meet up to. They meet just up over the hill from me. And she'll be out there for 3 or 4 hours, and she'll have her little sign. And sometimes lately she's been bringing a baby carrier with her. Earlier in the summer, it was a pair of suitcases, so she's bringing props. And I've seen her walk past our house here a couple times. The wife has seen her do it too. So we know she lives down the road here, in the immediate vicinity somewhere. Not sure what she's up to, other than just trying to get money. And hey, I joke, but I get to the point where physically I can't hold a job and I still have to come up with money. I might have to do just that too. I might be an old geezer out here on that same corner someday with a sign, asking for people's pity, right? Because we don't know where the hell this world's going, and it's a terrible thing. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on, and conversations about whys, the what forwards, and the whys and the hows of the affordable housing and other issues. And you listen to certain places like out west, out in California, San Francisco, San Diego. Some of those places, the housing market is just it's out of control. Only the wealthiest people can afford to own homes there, and just renting places is insane, right? So as I've said before, my wife and I found ourselves one step from homeless. I said I had 1 foot outside the door. We had that 30-year-old RV, and we lived in it for better part of 18 damn months. And through 2 winters, one full winter and 2 partial winters in that thing. With all of our worldly possessions jammed in that, and the old Lumina that we had with us, and the storage locker we were able to afford to pay for. And I knew one way or another we were not going to stay in that damn RV forever, but I also knew one major mechanical failure away from being on the street, literally. We started looking for apartments after my mom passed away. We had given up and our apartments years and years back, and after my dad died, and we moved in to look after mom, and that became normal. And we were caught flat-footed when mom passed away, and most of her everything, all of her money was tied up in the house. And when we sold it, Medicaid took half of it right off the bat. They reclaimed half of her money. It was almost 50 grand they took. And after we paid all of her other debts and bills and got everything, her medical expenses and burial expenses, everything taken care of, my sister and I split for 8 grand. Or 16,000, excuse me, 16,000. She got 8 grand. I got half that because I had owed child support at that moment. I was still paying off. I finally paid off my child support back in last spring as well, thank God, because things would be much worse now if we were still paying that. I'm still struggling, but anyway, isn't that funny when we talk about that shit? We started looking for apartments, the wife and I couldn't find anything in under $900 a month, and we needed by all rights, we needed a minimum of a 2-bedroom apartment, and because we inherited my mom's cat, we kind of needed a place for the pet. So we needed a cat-friendly apartment, and it needed to have 2 rooms because we have just too much crap. And at that point, even if we'd have rented the apartment, that meant probably 3/4 of our personal stuff. Most of our personal stuff we would have had to got rid of because there wouldn't have been room for it. And we sure couldn't hold on to a storage locker indefinitely. That's $150 a month at the time. So we made the decision. I made the decision. We had the old RV, and we moved into it, and tried to started saving money towards buying a house, because the rental market was out crazy. The housing market was bad too. Now we lucked out through some circumstances, some dumb luck, and some help from some people who gave us the good advice. Good advice can be worth a lot of money if you listen to it, if you pay attention to what you're listening to and you heed it. It's not always that way, but it does come out that way. So we were able to get this house that I'm living in now. We're on 5 years in this house now. We have not missed a payment. We have not missed a utility payment. 5 years. The RV's long gone. The old Lumina's long gone. Just saying. Thank God. And my mortgage went down $20 from last year. So our mortgage is $700. It's actually $600. Now, the way we got the house, part of it was I was always drilled into my head you had to have 10%. It was always that 10%. Getting to that 10% was always a battle. At no point in my life did I ever have the means, willingly anyway, to acquire 10 grand and sit on it. I had a whole lot of incentive to do that when we found ourselves in that RV. So we saved every damn penny we could. And if anybody tells you living in an RV is cheap, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm telling you, it is not cheap. It was expensive. We spent on an average of $1,000 a month to live in the old RV. And that's with no permanent place. And praying that something didn't happen to the motor or the drives, the transmission, or any number of scenarios. We were at the mercy of this thing. So we were able to save our money, and the fact we got 4 grand from the estate helped. That was a big chunk of what we saved. We saved another 5 grand, so it was just about 9 grand saved when we finally went to look for a house. And the housing market was bad. It's worse now, but it was bad then. We had 4 houses bought out from under us before we could even see them. Because you'd go schedule a walk, you'd see a house, you'd do a walkthrough, then you'd put money down. We never could get to that stage. So when we seen this house, it didn't even come on the market yet. They just put the sign out front. He hadn't listed it yet, and the wife and I stopped and we walked around and looked in the windows, and it was no upstairs, no downstairs. Got attached garage, got central air, and a decent sized yard. And it's 3 blocks from where I work, and it's a half a block over there is a convenience store. So my wife, who cannot drive, can walk to the convenience store whenever she chooses to or wants to get something. I wanted her to have that bit of freedom, because we had that in the small town we had. She could walk uptown to the local Casey's if she wanted to. Well, I wanted her to have that here too. And so we were lucky. And our credit union that give us the loan to the house actually set us up with a 100% finance loan. And I didn't know what the hell that was because, like I said, I was always told you need 10, 20% of a down payment. So that's what we were struggling to get. And they said that no, so what they did was is they structured our house mortgage with two. So we have two mortgages. We have the 30-year loan that covered the 90% of the cost of the house. And then that 10% down that we were required to have, they gave us a second mortgage for that 10%. So we pay $600 and then we pay $100 a month. So $7 total is what we're paying. We was $715 last year, so it's come down $15. It's actually come down to $595. So it would be we came down $20. We choose to make the $600. I always like to round up. It's like the secondary mortgage is actually like $98 or something. We just make it $100. We always overpay just a little bit because that just makes me feel better. It's easier to keep track of the numbers too. So we were able to get this house, and I was watching a show the other night while I was working, talking about the home equality issues and affordable housing issues in America. And one of the big problems is that corporate America, Wall Street, and foreign investors have gotten involved in this, and all they're doing is basically buying up properties. They're buying up private homes and public properties everywhere and all they can in large numbers, and then they sit on them. So you could have 15 houses in your neighborhood and perhaps 5 of them are empty because nobody's buying them or nobody's renting them. And the reason they're not is because that is some kind of holding for some major company that's using it for tax purposes. Meanwhile, they're denying those housing units to the housing market that so desperately needs it. So when we talk about affordable housing crisis, we talk about a housing crisis in America, period. I have to ask, really? How big of a crisis do we really have? If we have such a sheer large number of privately owned, intentionally left vacant homes, then we have an artificial shortage that's being created by whom and for what reasons? What are they benefiting from? It's funny when we talk about rights in America, and everybody has their own views and versions of how things should be, and that's one of the glorious things about America. You, my friends, are entitled to your rights. You get to believe whatever the hell you want to believe, no matter how crackpot and crazy shit, off the wall shit it is. That's the beauty of our democracy, of our freedom, of our republic, of all the other crap. Because you know what? We are something that's hard to quantify. That's the truth. People struggle. Well, they're a democracy. No, they're not. Well, they're a republic. Well, they're not really a republic. Well, they're an empire. Not really an empire. Not yet. Not from the lack of some people trying, though. But we're kind of special because the fact that you can't easily define what it is to be an American and what Americans really stand for. And that's a beautiful thing. Because what the hell do we know? What the hell do you know, America? Let's be honest. What the hell do we know? What the hell do you know? What the hell do these ass clowns we elect think they know? Because at the end of the day, we are guessing here. We're making educated guesses based on an awful lot of information and facts and knowledge and experience, or we're just doing a wild hair up our ass and just hoping we're right. But at the end of the day, it's a trial and error thing, and that's how life works. So our guaranteed constitutional rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Isn't it sad that those are not literally verbatim the rights that they ought to be? It should be literally your life is guaranteed. That means you don't have to, worry about a whole bunch of other shit. But then we get this whole, well, whose life we talking about? So the whole abortion thing gets up. At the end of the day, no offense, conservative America and Christian America, y'all wrong. Y'all wrong. This isn't 200 years ago. Women have a right to decide their damn decisions, make decisions. The human being, an adult has the right to make decisions what's right for them. You go in and your doctor tells you you're going to terminal cancer and you're going to die in 6 months or a year unless you do this, this, and this, and they still can't guarantee you'll survive, but you go through a whole lot of really nasty shit to hope you don't die. You make the choice whether you want it or not. And if you choose not to, nobody's going to put you in prison for doing so. So to tell women that what they can and can't do about their own bodies is bullshit. And that's something that women wake the fuck up. Your great grandmas and great grandmas fought tooth and nail to get you where you are now. You can't let these fuck asses take that shit from you. If you guys are willful, if your mom or your aunt or your sister is willfully voting for the people who are pushing these agendas, you need to put a check on them, because they are not voting for their own conscience neither. Just saying. Sometimes party bullshit has to be set aside. What's right has to be picked up. This is the right thing for us to do. It's like the pursuit of happiness. Liberty is such a big thing. Wow, we're going to have freedom and this, freedom to this, and freedom to that. Freedoms are an illusion. And, George Carlin's an excellent sounding board for all the truths of the hypocrisy of this country. You have all the freedom that they allow you to have. And a lot of the freedom you think you have is an illusion in your mind. Because you don't have a tenth of freedom you do think you do. I have the right to do this, the right to do that. Do you? Do you have the right to do this? You have a right to do this until it stops at somebody else's right, and then we have a problem, or a conundrum, or a debate. Or somebody goes to jail for violating the rights of the other people. Because that's why we have those, and we have rules in place, and we have penalties and punishments in place. If you fuck up, you pay the price. You fuck up, you pay the price. You go to prison. You go to jail. You do time. You do community service. Do the right thing, and then you try to go forward. You keep repeating the same crap, because that's how you spend the rest of your life in prison. And it sucks, I tell you. So the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's really vague, because what makes you happy doesn't necessarily make me happy, and what makes us happy probably pisses those people off. You're never going to get everybody happy. But the idea is that my philosophy has always been that the America guarantees you the right to have happiness, to seek happiness, to pursue happiness. As long as it doesn't cross over and violate the liberties and freedoms of other people and or the life of other people. Right? So they'll sit there and somebody will say, well, don't the unborn babies have their lives too? They have rights? Do they? They're a fetus. Yes. Are they aware of themselves? We do not know. Can you find out? Can you find out from a fetus if it's aware of itself? Well, a cat's aware of itself too. Dog's aware of itself. The bird outside your window is aware of itself. Being aware of yourself and being intelligent enough to rationalize the differences, who's to say? At some point, is human life sacred? Hell yeah. Human life should be sacred all along. But we weigh this. We have to weigh this. Sometimes, for the better good of the larger body, the smaller body gets excised. And it's a tough thing. It doesn't make it right. It makes it terrible. It makes it even worse when other people are telling you what you can and can't do. It's hard enough to get, and if you think getting rid of abortion gets rid of abortion, it ain't ever going away. It just goes back under the counter, in the dark closets where people die from bad stuff. They don't get the proper care that they should have had. Or if you're wealthy enough, see, that's the thing that really pisses me off the most when I hear a lot of these sanctimonious hypocrites. And I'm referring to the majority of Republican politicians today, exception of Speaker Johnson. Mike Johnson's a different type of animal. He's a completely different thing. So most people in this are hypocrites, because at the end of the day, they don't care one way or another. They just do it because it's some kind of political advantage to hold the ground. Even though right now every indication out there says this is a bad shot for the Republican Party, and it's done a lot of damage to them, and it will continue to do a lot of damage to them. And Trump bragging about bringing down Roe versus Wade is just reminding it and rubbing salt in wounds of a lot of very frustrated people. And when you cross that boundary, when you're so determined to own the libs that you shit on the rest of us in between, you get what's coming. And you really have no right to get appalled, shocked, or mad when the majority of the Americans who are independent people who don't quite fall into either camp, because, like I said, I have a lot of Democratic tendencies, a lot of beliefs of what I think should be right, and I agree with them on a lot of shit. And I think of a lot of things on the conservative side of things that are important too, that do matter, that the Democrats do not do a good job of. All right? So we have a problem that's going to continue to get worse. So one of the show I was watching, and Tyson was talking about it, and on Joe Rogan, and he said one of the things. No, it wasn't Tyson. It was, who the hell was it? I can't think of the guy that was on the Joe Rogan. He was talking about the housing crisis and issues, and it's a math thing. No, it was Tyson. He was talking about it because it's a math issue. A lot of it's got to do with math. And you'd have to go talk to him and see and watch the video to get just exactly how the hell this boils down. But it's something I didn't think about. He says if you look at interest rates and the cost of houses today, the average American, you go back 50 years to the 1950s. My parents bought their first house. The average American would spend 1.5 times their yearly salary for their house. And that may take 20, 30 years to pay the damn thing off. So if you're making $50,000, buying a $75,000 house would be normal. So when I bought my $82,000 house, and my mortgage is as low as it is in part because it's about 1.5 times my salary. So when I combine my income and my wife's disability, we get about $52,000 on average. So this house is $80,000, $82,000 when we bought it. Now, ironically, 3 years later, it became 140. No, it's worth 120 something now. It was 140 something, and then they readjusted it and brought it down to about 120,000. So it's already half again more valuable than it was when I paid for the damn thing. So if I were to sell the house today, we'd actually walk away with $30,000 worth of profit, which would be a damn foolish thing on my part to do because I don't want to go through the bullshit of trying to find another house at my age. This is my house till I die. That's the way this is gonna work. So it's gonna be where my pursuit of my life and liberty and happiness revolves around my little corner of the damn universe that I denied myself and my family for so freaking many years because I'm a dumbass, right? I have to look at some of these states and some of these cities where this is a huge problem. And these people that live out there don't have any answers for it, and they won't make any serious attempts to answer. So when I think of the entire communities where the housing is so, the average the average service worker can't even make a drop in the bucket of paying a house payment, let alone rent. And you hear stories of 3 and 4 and 5 single people living in a 2-bedroom apartment and sharing the cost of renting that 2-bedroom apartment. And you think, how the fuck do you live that way? When my first apartment, when I was 18 years old, right out of high school, was 2 other guys. The 3 of us rented a 2-bedroom apartment with the idea that the guy that came up with the most money got the master bedroom, and the other bedroom we would rotate it out every month. We'd flip who got. And then the other months you'd sleep on the couch. And we didn't stay in that apartment as a group for more than 3 months. I can tell you that much. It didn't work out all that well. But we were 18 and stupid. Just saying. 3 guys working on 3 different pizza places. Yeah. There was a keg in the bathtub the entire time we were there. I took showers with kegs because that's what you do, right? So I look at that and I think of the housing problems and how the hell does these, like San Francisco, if the housing expense is so god awful there, And you see so many people living in row after row, street after street of street camps. They're not all there because they're mentally challenged. They're not all there because of drugs. If they're there long enough, that they'll end up with those problems. I guarantee it. You despair will get to you. Uh, Quite a few of them. You work at your McDonald's, but you can't make enough money to pay for rent. Where the hell do you do? You're going to commute from 3 hours away. So that is that what's happening to these big cities? Is that so the entire neighborhoods are staffed by people that can't afford to live there? What happens when they stop coming to work there? I mean, I'm just asking. I don't know. I'd like to know, really. If you listen to the conservative side, it's horrifically bad. So how come they ain't rioting in the streets there? How come we ain't seeing more of it? So the media, the liberal media is just keeping it under control. Well, no offense, liberal, or no offense, conservatives. We got a shitload of things called social media today. And I'm pretty sure that there's tens of millions of people that live in those states, or in the thousands of people for sure that live in those areas with cell phones. So I find it hard to believe that it's some big state secret, right? A big part of the problem, of course, back to wages. Wages. People can't afford to support themselves, and it's on both sides. I've seen stories of elderly people living out of their cars because the same problems happen. They can't afford the rent anymore, and their Social Security, the disability, that stuff doesn't cover. I mean, in an emergency, my gross paycheck for an average week would be sufficient to pay our mortgage. So one paycheck a month, straight up, would pay our mortgage if my wife was unable to contribute. You know, if I had to pay twice that, we wouldn't have the house. We could not afford to do so. And I know a lot of young folks that have actually gone out on a limb and overextended themselves. They made mistakes of buying these massively expensive properties early on and take on huge debts and then even worse payments, and then struggle to meet them, let alone everything else, and they despair over it. I looked at my folks' house, and they had a 4-bedroom farmhouse on 3 acres of property, and it had a creek in the back and a huge four vehicle garage and a barn out behind that. And my folks bought it for like $21,000 in 1972, and the house was run down because we didn't have money to fix it up, so we ended up selling it for $120,000. It's just 30 minutes outside of Des Moines. Had it been 20 minutes outside of Des Moines, closer to town, that area there, since the Renaissance, we'd have got $250,300 out of it without a house. It's just crazy. Hey, I can't make that stuff up, and I don't know how these people do it. I don't know how y'all do it, right? 1 in 4 Americans work for $15 or less an hour. Well, I don't know what you think that means, but if you're taking home $300 a week after taxes, you're not renting a $1,000 apartment. You're not. Not unless you got a spouse who's bringing money in to pay for everything else, because your entire paycheck is going to go just to pay your rent. And God help you if you you get sick, or you have a car problem, or any other 100 other things that can throw a wrench into that in a hurry. It ain't getting better, and you know what, my friends? Our politicians are doing shit about it. I hear a lot of noise and very little actual action. And that goes for both sides. The Republicans, Democrats, they're all in cahoots with this shit. You're going to have a housing that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive housing collapse, and then what is it? 10%? You're going to wait till 10% of the country's homeless? We're going to have the lowest unemployment rate in the world, and yet we have the highest homelessness rate for the Western world. That seems to be bullshit too, don't you think? It's just my opinion, just my thoughts. Till next time. It just irritates me to no end.